The earliest recorded example of options is referred to in a book written in the mid 4th century BC by Aristotle, famous philosopher. In this book entitled Politics, Aristotle includes an account about another philosopher, Thales of Miletus, and how he had profited from an olive harvest. Now, Thales had great interest in, amongst other things, astronomy and mathematics. And he combined his knowledge of these subjects to create what were effectively the first known options contracts. Now, by studying the stars, Thales had managed to predict that there would be a vast olive harvest in his region and set out to profit from his prediction. He recognized that there would be a significant demand for olive presses, and he wanted to basically corner the market. Now, Thales didn't have sufficient funding to own all of the olive presses. So instead, he paid the owners of the olive presses a sum of money in order to secure the rights to use them at harvest time. Now, when the harvest came around, as Thales predicted, it was indeed huge, and he resold his rights to the olive presses to those who needed them, and he made a sizable profit. Now, although the term wasn't used at the time, Thales had effectively created the first call option with olive presses as the underlying security. He had paid out for the right, but not the obligation to use the olive presses at a fixed price, and was then able to exercise his options for a profit. This is the basic principle for how call options work today. And in today's episode of The Cash Furnace, we're going to be discussing what options are, how they can be used, and how to trade them in today's first class of Pauly Learns Options. Options.
Yeah,
101.
baby.
All right, that was decent, right?
Great intro. I thought that was good. I could not
So-
be more excited, Eric.
All right, so today I'm your host, Eric Downs. I'm going to be teaching my co-host, Paul Kinzierski here, about options. Paul is a very experienced crypto trader, and whereas a lot of my background is in options trading. And over the last several months, we've been exchanging a lot of our knowledge. Paulie's been just absolutely blessing myself and our friends with his depth of crypto knowledge. But he has seen the light, the power, and profitability of options trading. And so with marking today with today's episode, we're going to begin a series where I teach Paulie how to trade options. Paulie,
It's great.
anything to add before we begin, or should we just jump right in?
I say we jump right in. Everybody that clicked on this video has clicked on it knowing exactly what they're getting into. So welcome to Options. You are learning from a guy who has some serious knowledge and has the trading record to back up that he knows what he's talking about. So without further ado, Eric, what is an option?
All right, Paulie, an option is a contract that gives the buyer the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell an underlying asset, such as a stock, based off of a specific price on or before a certain date. Now, that's a pretty textbook kind of definition of the thing, and that's because I read it off a website. Because they summed it up, honestly, more eloquently than I necessarily would. But it's true. Options are a really, really cool financial tool that is very popular right now for several main reasons. They're very popular because you get to trade against stocks that you already know. Stocks that you already know. But you get to trade them, first of all, with leverage. Now, I'm going to get into the details of what I mean by this. But basically, the simple explanation of that is that you can control a far greater number of shares of a stock than what you pay for.
Right.
The options are also very popular because they are a limited risk play. And what that means is that you put down a sum of money. That sum of money is the most you can lose on an options play. Again, we'll get deeper into that into as we go on. But that's a huge appeal to options. And the last one, and my favorite part of options, is they can be used in multiple environments for multiple uses. For example, you can use them obviously for profit. A lot of people do that, but you can also use them as a hedge to protect your current profits. Perhaps more simply put, what I really love about options is that you can use them to profit off of a stock no matter what it does.
Right.
Whether the stock is going up, whether it's going down, or literally if it does nothing, if it goes sideways, you can use options to make a profit. And that's what I love about them. So
That's what I love to hear.
pretty cool,
So,
right?
yeah. So, getting into it now, a little bit more of the details. What are the types of options that we can buy, right? The everyday trader. Not getting into the super complicated versions you could do. I know there's all sorts of specific names for specific strategies. Just basically, what can I buy? What can I sell? How do I do it?
Perfect. So luckily, this answer is very simple. There are two types of options contracts. That's it: calls and puts. Okay.
Right.
Now, a call option allows the owner, the holder of the option, to buy shares at a certain price
Right.
by a certain date. I'll explain these with an example momentarily. A put option is the opposite. It allows the owner of the contract to sell shares at a certain price. So here's an example. Let's say let's say we think Facebook stock is going to go up. All right. Now, there's a few ways we can profit from this, right? We could buy a ton of Facebook shares, which at $270 a share, we would need a lot of money
That's
to
right.
do. But alternatively, we could buy let's say a 270 strike call option.
Right.
Now, the strike is the price at which you are able to exercise the option. And again, a call option allows you to buy at that price.
Right.
Now, let's say Facebook were to go up to 280. Wonderful, wonderful. If you exercise your call option, that means you are allowed to buy 100 shares of Facebook at $270 a piece instead of the current price of 280.
Right.
And what you could do there, if you want it, you could turn them around and sell them immediately for an instant profit of $10 a share.
Okay.
Now, conversely, let's say you thought Facebook was going to go down. So let's say you bought a 270 strike put option. Well, if you're right and Facebook went to $260, you could buy it at $260 and immediately sell it at $270 because you have the option to do that.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets. Now those are the basics. Those are the basics of your two different types of options. And if you didn't catch that, when I mentioned that options are leveraged, as you may have caught, one options contract represents 100 shares of stock.
Right.
So that's where the leverage comes in, because you might only pay a couple $100s for the options contract.
Right.
If you bought 100 shares, it would cost you tens of thousands in the case of Facebook.
Right.
That's what's really cool about them. You can control. You're trading over the control of the shares, not the shares themselves.
But to put it into perspective, you may pay $500 for a call option at $270, right? But if you were to buy the stock at the current $260 price, if you wanted to buy 100 shares, you would have to pay out $2,600. So you can see how
that'd be for 10 shares.
Oh yeah, Jesus. Yes. So $26,000. Okay. So you could see how a very limited capital account can net you a whole bunch of profit with this strategy, provided you make the right calls, right? Now, what I really want to get into with you is one of the most lucrative parts about having an option is when you think a stock is going to go down, so you buy a put, right? I want you to explain a little bit why buying a put is so much more lucrative than actually shorting a stock.
Well, interestingly, buying a put is more buying options in general, calls or puts is more lucrative than just shorting the actual stock, because the amount that you can make is such a higher multiple of the, or sorry, let me put it this way. The amount that you can make compared to the amount that you have to put down is tremendously
Right.
greater, a tremendous multitude greater than if you were just shorting stock or buying stock. Because again, each contract represents 100 shares. That's why.
Right.
So that's where the real profit comes in. Now, if you're asking specifically about shorting,
Right.
about profiting off of a stock going down, so to answer that, we actually immediately jump into some more complicated dynamics of options.
Right.
But essentially, the reason that's profitable is because, especially in today's modern market where, gosh, the whole damn thing just seems to go up all the time. The market in general just goes up all the time.
Right.
Basically, the likelihood, the market's perception of the likelihood that a stock is going to go down is much lower long term than the likelihood that it's going to go up. So it doesn't cost much to make that bet.
Right.
You know, it's not a high demand bet.
Right.
You know, it's not like there's a ton of people rushing in to say Facebook's going down. If there were, the prices would go up because
Right.
it'd be a lot of demand.
Right.
So you don't have to put a lot of money down to make that bet. But if Facebook goes down, the payout is enormous.
Right. So also my apologies for not wording it correctly, but the bigger thing I want to get into is the limitation of risk versus shorting a stock, right?
Right.
Okay.
So let's use Facebook as an example because it's a good one. So let's compare 100 shares of Facebook stock with some options.
Yep.
So right now, Facebook, if I believe, as of today, I think Facebook is at 270. I'm going to double check this real quick. I have it up in front of me. Yep, almost to the penny. Facebook's at 270 a share. Now, if you wanted to own 100 shares of Facebook, that means you need to put down $27,000 right now.
Yep.
A lot of money. You know, it's a big bet.
Yeah.
For me, at least. So the other problem is, if Facebook goes to zero, which, okay, the likelihood of that happening is low, but if it goes to zero, you have a max loss of $27,000.
Right.
However, if you were to buy, let's say, a call option on Facebook, thinking it's going to go up, and you spend $500 on that option, if Facebook goes to zero, the most you've lost is $500.
That's right.
That's it. You cannot lose more than that. So I guess the way to summarize that is that when you're playing with stock, you have 100%. Your capital is at a 100% exposure risk to the stock. When you're playing with options, you are only exposed to the risk that you allot, which is generally a mere fraction of the cost of
and that works
the stock.
and that works both ways, right? So if you think a stock is going to go down and you short it, traditionally the risk of loss is unlimited technically, right? So let's say Facebook pulls a Tesla, goes to 4,000 a share, right? The amount you would lose if you just purely shorted that stock would be astronomical. However,
go on forever. Yep.
if you bought again a $500 put option, the max you would lose is $500. So it's very enticing for both ways, even though it can be a little scary with the percentage gains and losses within a couple days. You have to realize the amount of total risk you have is quite small compared to if you bought 100 shares of the stock.
Correct. That's exactly right. And that's why options are very appealing to a lot of traders, because, you know, like you said, when you're trading as a professional, you're constantly just calculating and, analyzing risk, how much how much money you're willing to risk to make how much, how much
Right.
profit.
Right.
And options make it really, really, really easy to do that for the reasons we just mentioned. Now, that being said, options are a very complicated investing tool, much more
Absolutely.
complicated than everything that we just explained. And the reasons for this are a set, how do I say, a set of factors that I think we're going to get into in a future episode.
That's right.
But it's a set of factors referred to as the Greeks. And the Greeks essentially measure things like the rate of the rate of profit, the acceleration of profit, things like time decay. Again, we'll get into this in the future.
Right.
But there are when it comes to a stock, the only thing that affects its price is the price.
Right.
You know what I mean? The only thing that affects your investment is the price of the stock.
That's right.
When it comes to options, there are like 6 different factors that are constantly simultaneously working to affect the price of your option, and they can work very quickly
Right.
and very dramatically, and you can make tons of money really fast, and you can just as equally lose a ton of money really fast.
That's right.
Trust me,
And
I've done it.
the reason why we're making this series, right? And I haven't made a crypto series right off the bat, is because with options, if you understand these fundamentals, you're already so many steps ahead of people who are just dipping their toes in, who didn't bother to do their homework, that I believe for our audience, this will actually be far more profitable and far more advantageous to have as a knowledge base than I would simply giving you guys crypto charts right off the bat and giving you general crypto psychology ideals that I've traded on in the future. This right here, this series that we're coming out with, if you perfect the basics, you can become a very, very profitable trader simply because of other people's laziness.
That's right. I mean, this is the equivalent of wanting to be a car owner. And it's right now, it's what we're talking about is the difference between your willingness to understand how an engine works.
Right.
The basics, how to change your oil,
Yep.
how to replace your fluids. This isn't, you don't have to be able to take apart an engine to understand the basics of how it works.
That's right.
And exactly with the same with options, you don't have to understand all of the infinitely finite or infinite minutia, but to understand the main mechanics behind what's driving the price of your option is going to empower you to a point of profitability that most new traders will be ignorant to forever.
Yep.
Because they're just going to get dollar signs in their eyeballs when they see a bunch of other people making 100, 200x profit, which
Right.
you can absolutely do.
Right. Right.
So,
So, final point. Let's get into what options are used for traditionally. Damn. Damn.